Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise on the biggest headlines and really get to the core of what you need to know.
That's right.
And today, wow, we are tackling a prediction that's just, it's so extreme you have to look closer. A potential gain of 792%.
Yeah, 792%. I mean, that number, it's designed to make you stop and stare, right?
Absolutely.
And what really makes it count, the reason we're diving deep, is the source, Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase.
Exactly.
When someone like that, running a major exchange, points to a specific crypto and throws out a number like, oh, well, almost 9 times return, the market listens, the media listens, everyone serious about this space pays attention.
Right. This isn't, some anonymous account yelling on social media. This is a signal, a big one, from the head of a globally known, publicly traded company. So our mission today is simple. Look past the sheer excitement of that number. We need to analyze the thesis behind it.
That's the job.
Is this prediction actually grounded in real shifts? Technology, finance. Or is it just market hype? Maybe riding the wave of the current cycle.
That's the critical question we need to answer for you. We've pulled together the sources, looked at the evidence, the tech upgrades, the institutional moves coming down the pipeline, and, importantly,
the risks.
The risks. The significant risks that often get glossed over but could absolutely stop this prediction in its tracks.
Yeah.
If you're involved in crypto, understanding the thinking behind this specific prediction, it's essential.
Okay, so the currency we're talking about, the one Armstrong thinks could jump almost 800%. It's Ethereum. ETH.
That's the one.
All right, let's do it. Let's unpack this huge number, break down Armstrong's reasons, and really assess this high-stakes bet he's making on the future of, well, everything decentralized. Okay, let's start right there with that headline number again. Ethereum, ETH, could see gains, according to Brian Armstrong, of up to 792%. That percentage. It immediately creates that FOMO feeling, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it also reminds you just how volatile this whole asset class is. High risk, potentially very high reward.
It's definitely dramatic, but the logic or the argument behind that specific number, it isn't just pulled out of thin air. It's actually quite structural.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's tied directly to this idea of market cap convergence, specifically with Bitcoin.
Oh, okay, so he's comparing it to Bitcoin.
Exactly. Armstrong is basically saying, look, given Ethereum's utility, given its roadmap, its total value, its market cap, should increase to a point where it starts to seriously rival Bitcoin's dominance in the market.
Right. So Bitcoin's market cap is kind of the target, the ceiling maybe. Yeah. And that 792%, that's the gap ETH needs to close to get there, or close to it.
That's the implication. And yeah, that is a massive statement about potentially shifting dominance in the crypto world.
It really is. So what's the engine here? What does Armstrong argue actually allows ETH to close that gap? What's the mechanism?
So this convergence, this closing of that, huge market cap difference, he sees it being driven by 3 main factors, and they're all interconnected.
Okay.
And they all revolve around making Ethereum ready for, well, truly global institutional level finance.
All right, lay them out for us. What are these 3 pillars supporting this prediction?
Okay, number 1. The successful rollout, and it has to be timely, of Ethereum's big scaling upgrades, making sure that base layer can handle a massive load.
Scaling first. Got it.
Number 2, the massive growth, and this is key, the user-friendly adoption of Layer 2 solutions, the whole roll-up ecosystem. That's where most of the transactions are supposed to happen.
Right, the L2's taking the strain. And number 3?
Number 3, and I think you could argue this is the most critical piece for getting that Bitcoin-like valuation. It's the explosion of tokenized assets.
RWAs.
RWAs, yeah. Real-world assets, taking stuff that's traditionally hard to trade, illiquid or complex think shares in private companies, real estate funds, maybe even bonds.
Stuff that exists outside crypto.
Exactly. And representing ownership of that stuff securely on a public blockchain like Ethereum.
That's a fundamental difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bitcoin is positioned as digital gold, a store of value.
Purely.
But Ethereum, Armstrong's betting, it becomes the operating system for the next generation of finance. If his logic holds, the financial world tokenizes trillions.
Trillions, potentially, yeah.
Fractional ownership of buildings, digital government bonds, all sorts of things. And Ethereum right now is kind of the default place for that to land.
That's the argument, precisely. And that's why this prediction, coming from him, adds so much perceived legitimacy to Ethereum's role, as the essential smart contract platform.
It suggests a huge flow of money is coming.
It implies that if Ethereum pulls off its roadmap, meaning if it actually fixes the congestion issues, then the sheer amount of institutional money, corporate money, that could flow in, using ETH itself for fees for settlement, it would be staggering.
And that volume, that necessity, is what justifies a valuation closer to Bitcoin.
That's the core of the argument.
Okay, but I have to push back here a bit. Why is Ethereum the default? We know there are faster chains out there. Solana's fast. Avalanche has pushes into institutional stuff too. Why would big banks pick Ethereum with its layers and complexity over something maybe simpler and faster?
That's a really, really important question. And the answer, I think, boils down to three things that institutions care about deeply, like really deeply.
Okay.
Security, decentralization, and network effects. First, security. Ethereum is secured by, well, probably the largest and most decentralized group of validators anywhere outside of Bitcoin itself.
Harder to attack.
Extremely hard to compromise. And banks, financial institutions, they put security way above raw speed. Always.
Makes sense.
Second, decentralization. It's linked to security, less control by any single entity. Third, network effects. This is huge. All the major DeFi protocols people trust, the auditing firms, the security tools, they're mostly built for Ethereum.
The whole ecosystem is there already.
It's already there. Launching a big RWA project on Ethereum gives you instant access to existing liquidity, existing standards, years of developer experience. Competitors just don't have that same depth or that proven track record over many years.
Okay, so Armstrong's framing ETH as the safe harbor for institutions, even with the tech complexity right now.
Sort of, yeah. The prudent, most battle-tested option for complex programmable value.
And that connects to something our sources mentioned in comparison to another big crypto personality.
It really does. It feels very similar to how Michael Saylor, years ago, started positioning Bitcoin, as the one true institutional reserve asset, the digital gold.
Armstrong's doing the same playbook, but for ETH.
Kind of, yeah. He's essentially saying Ethereum's utility, its role as this world computer, justifies a valuation in the same league as the big store of value, Bitcoin. It's a narrative shift, trying to move ETH from just speculative tech asset to essential global financial infrastructure.
That is a high-stakes bet. If he's right, that 792% isn't just a price target. It's almost the mathematical outcome if Ethereum actually becomes that infrastructure layer.
That's the logic, yeah. It's the convergence required for it to fulfill that promise.
Okay, let's zoom in now on the details inside that bull case, starting with the foundation. Network utility. I mean, Ethereum already runs huge parts of Web3.
It absolutely does. Its current use is its biggest advantage, its moat.
Talk us through that footprint. DeFi, NFTs, stablecoins,
Yeah.
and this emerging RWA thing.
Right. So DeFi, decentralized finance, you're talking hundreds of billions in value locked up, managed on-chain. The vast majority of that. It's native to Ethereum or its layer 2s.
The plumbing is already built on ETH.
Pretty much. Then you have stablecoins, the digital dollars people use globally. Again, mostly issued and settled on Ethereum. It's the collateral layer, the settlement layer.
Yeah.
And maybe most relevant for institutions, it provides this deterministic execution environment. That sounds technical, but it just means if a smart contract runs on Ethereum, the outcome is guaranteed by the network's security. No ambiguity.
Which is exactly what you need for complex financial agreements.
Precisely. Automated, complex transactions for tokenized securities. You need that certainty. Ethereum provides it at scale, arguably better than anyone else right now.
So it's the established player.
Yeah.
The incumbent, but we know incumbency isn't always enough, right? It can lead to getting slow, complacent.
True.
Which brings us to what you said makes this prediction really interesting. It completely depends on the success of the upgrade roadmap.
Completely, yeah.
The network has to evolve. It has to go from being, successful but often clogged and expensive to being this global supercomputer that can handle, theoretically, the entire world's financial traffic.
And that leap, that transformation, it's all about scaling. The whole prediction relies on the core engineering strategy working out, which is basically get the bulk of the work off the main chain. So when we talk about future-proofing Ethereum for this vision, we're mainly talking about two key technologies, rollups and dank sharding.
Okay, we've heard those terms.
Right.
Let's break them down simply for everyone listening. What exactly is a rollup and why is it so central to Armstrong's idea?
Okay, think of Ethereum's main chain, layer 1, like a very busy, very official courthouse. Every single case, every transaction has to be seen and recorded by every single judge, every validator.
It's jammed up easily, slow, expensive.
Exactly. A roll-up, think Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, Starknet. It's like setting up a super efficient branch office right next door, built on top of the main courthouse's authority.
Okay.
This branch office, the layer 2, handles thousands of cases, thousands of transactions, offsite, really fast and cheap. Then it bundles up all the final results, the judgments, into one tiny, mathematically secure proof.
Like a summary report.
A cryptographic summary, yeah. And it sends only that tiny proof back to the main courthouse, the layer 1, for the final official stamp. Guaranteed recording.
So it multiplies the capacity drastically.
Massively multiplies capacity, but crucially, it still gets its security from the main Ethereum network. That's the magic. That's how scaling works today.
Got it. So that's roll-ups. What about dank sharding? Sounds exotic.
Yeah, the name is a bit weird. Dank sharding is the next big step. Think of it less about making transactions faster on layer 1 and more about making massively more room for all those roll-ups to report back.
More space for the summaries.
Exactly. It uses some clever tech, data availability sampling, or DAS, to drastically increase the storage space, they call them data blobs, available on the main chain specifically for roll-ups to post their proofs.
Okay, so it doesn't speed up L1 itself.
No, but it makes the cost for those roll-ups to submit their batches of transactions potentially exponentially cheaper. If the cost for Arbitrum or Base to post their data back to Ethereum drops by, say, 90 or 99%, then the final fee for you, the end user on that L2, should drop proportionally.
Making L2s potentially dirt cheap.
That's the goal. Armstrong's 792% prediction. It falls apart if those transaction fees don't plummet for everyday users. Dank sharding is the main engineering bet to make that happen.
Okay, so the tech success is one side. The other side is money flow. This isn't just code. It's about Wall Street actually buying in.
Yes.
And the big catalyst there seems to be the expected arrival of U.S.-based spot Ether ETFs, exchange-traded funds.
Absolutely critical, pivotal. The approval and then the actual listing of these ETFs. That's the main institutional on-ramp we're watching.
Why is it such a big deal?
Because it changes ETH from being, this asset that requires special wallets, special custody, understanding gas fees, into just another financial product, something you can buy in your regular brokerage account, like a stock.
Simple ticker symbol.
Simple ticker. That immediately unlocks the potential for huge allocations from wealth managers, pension funds, maybe even corporate treasuries, people who need regulatory clarity and easy access, which an ETF provides.
And Coinbase itself is involved in listing these ETF applications, right? Which shows Armstrong's betting his own company's future on this.
Huge signal of confidence. When Wall Street players can just click a button and allocate billions to ETH through an ETF, well, that market cap convergence idea suddenly seems a lot more possible. It removes so much friction.
Okay, and this links directly to something you mentioned earlier, the internal strategy. Coinbase didn't just watch the L2s explode.
No, they jumped in.
They launched their own layer 2 base. How does that fit into this?
This is really clever. It's about aligning incentives. Base is built using Ethereum's tech stack, specifically the Optimism stack. It relies completely on Ethereum Layer 1 for its security and final settlement.
So Base needs Ethereum to work.
Absolutely. So when Base succeeds, when millions of Coinbase users start doing things cheaply and quickly on Base, what does that do? It drives more activity, more fees, eventually back to Ethereum L1, more developer interest in the whole Ethereum ecosystem.
So Armstrong isn't just predicting the 792%.
He's actively building the infrastructure that helps make his prediction come true. He's tying Coinbase's future revenue streams directly to the success of Ethereum's scaling.
It's a feedback loop. His company benefits if the ecosystem he's predicting will boom actually booms.
Exactly. Coinbase shifts from just being an exchange where you buy ETH to being a core part of the infrastructure making ETH useful and scalable. Their success becomes intertwined with that whole Ethereum roadmap playing out. Now,
to really grasp why this scaling race is so intense, why Armstrong's focus on L2s isn't just a nice-to-have, but an absolute must. We need to look back a bit.
History provides context, yeah.
Let's talk about that NFT boom. 2021, 2022. For users, that was a painful time on Ethereum.
Oh, it was chaos. But, incredibly revealing chaos. It was like a perfect storm testing the network's limits.
What happened?
Demand just went vertical, primarily NFTs, but also tons of DeFi activity. The network worked, technically, but only if you were willing to pay an insane price.
The gas fees.
The gas fees. We saw data showing average transaction costs hitting hundreds of dollars. Sometimes, for complex actions like minting a popular NFT, it could spike into the thousands. just for one transaction.
I remember seeing that. People complaining they spent more on the fee than the actual NFT they were buying. It was absurd.
It was completely absurd. And that period, it did two things perfectly. One, it showed there was massive real demand for what Ethereum enabled. People wanted to use it.
Okay.
But two, it starkly highlighted the critical bottleneck, the scalability problem. It proved beyond any doubt that Ethereum Layer 1 simply could not handle global mainstream levels of traffic without fundamental changes.
It choked.
It choked. It was the breaking point that really crystallized why Layer 2s weren't just a good idea, they were essential for survival and growth. It showed the demand was there, just waiting for the network to catch up.
So that history makes the push for L2s, the rollups like Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, it makes their success absolutely non-negotiable for this 792% prediction to even be possible.
That's the absolute core of it. Armstrong's entire vision relies on successfully moving the vast majority of everyday transactions off Layer 1 and onto these L2s.
You make L1 the settlement layer.
Secure, maybe a bit slow, maybe a bit expensive, but that's okay because it's just for final settlement and security.
And make the L2s the fast, cheap place where users actually do things.
Exactly. That's the model. That's the goal. The success of those specific platforms, Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, and others, is directly tied to hitting that mass market potential needed for a Bitcoin-like market cap.
And the cool thing is, we can actually track this shift. It's not just theoretical.
We can, yes. Which is vital if you're trying to figure out if this prediction is on track.
What should people be watching?
Okay, the key metric is the ratio. How much transaction volume is happening on the Layer 2s compared to the main Layer 1 chain? You want to see that L2 volume growing consistently.
More activity moving off the main chain.
Right. And you couple that with tracking the gas fees on Layer 1 itself. If the scaling solutions are working properly, then even when the network gets busy overall, the fees on Layer 1 should stay relatively stable, relatively manageable.
Because the L2s are absorbing the load.
Precisely. If we suddenly see Layer 1 gas fees spiking wildly again, like back in the NFT boom, that's a major red flag. It means either the L2s aren't scaling effectively enough, or users just haven't moved over in large enough numbers to relieve the pressure.
Okay, so track L2 volume versus L1 and watch those L1 gas fees. What about conviction? Long-term belief in the network. The merge changed things significantly.
Hugely significant. The merge shifting from proof of work to proof of stake.
From mining to staking.
Right. It fundamentally changed how the network is secured. Now, security comes from people locking up their capital, their ETH, to validate transactions and earn rewards. It's a direct financial commitment.
So staking is a measure of belief.
It's a direct measure of long-term conviction. When people stake ETH, they're typically locking it away for a significant period. They're betting on the network's longevity, security, and future value appreciation.
So what's the metric there?
You absolutely have to track the growth in staked ETH. Look at the total number of validators joining the network, and crucially, the percentage of the total ETH supply that's being staked.
Has that been growing since the merge?
It has been, quite significantly, and that's seen as a very bullish sign by proponents. It shows increasing confidence, and it also reduces the amount of ETH readily available to be sold on the market.
Less liquid supply.
Exactly. So rising staked ETH equals rising conviction. If that number starts to flatten out or even decline, that would suggest confidence is weakening among the core believers.
Okay, so staking tracks the capital commitment. What about the people building on it? The human capital.
Developer activity. Yes, absolutely critical. You need to compare the size and maybe more importantly, the engagement level of Ethereum's developer community versus its main competitors.
How many people are building apps, tools, protocols?
Right. Historically, Ethereum has had, by far, the largest and most active developer base. They're the ones creating the DeFi apps, the NFT standards, the RWA protocols, even the scaling solutions themselves.
The brain trust.
Kind of, yeah. If that talent pool starts to seriously migrate elsewhere, if developers feel that, say, Solana or another Layer 1 offers a better platform, faster growth, easier tools,
That would be bad.
that developer brain drain would be a huge warning sign. It suggests the platform might be losing its edge, losing its future relevance. And that would fundamentally undermine Armstrong's whole 792% thesis. So yeah, we're tracking money, usage, and talent. Okay, we've laid out the bull case, the upgrades, the potential. Now we absolutely have to pivot. We have to talk seriously about the risks.
Because a prediction like 792%, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are major hurdles.
Huge hurdles. And for anyone listening, getting a balanced view is crucial. So while Armstrong positions Ethereum as this inevitable institutional choice, the biggest, most immediate threat, Fierce competition.
And it is fierce, isn't it? Ethereum might have been first, but the blockchain world moves incredibly fast.
Blindingly fast. And the competition often made different design choices. Ethereum, as we discussed, prioritized decentralization and security first, relying on layer 2s for speed.
The layered approach.
Right. Many competitors went for raw speed on layer 1 from the start. They optimized for performance, sometimes making trade-offs on decentralization.
Look who.
Well, the emergence of really powerful, often single-chain alternatives, you hear about Solana, Avalanche, Sui, Aptos, these are serious threats to that narrative of Ethereum being the only game in town.
Let's focus on Solana for a second, because its growth, especially in late 2023 and into 2024, really highlights this danger for Ethereum, doesn't it?
It's the perfect case study. Solana's architecture is often called monolithic. It tries to do everything consensus, execution, data on one extremely fast, highly optimized chain.
All in one layer.
All in one layer. And the result? Transaction speeds and costs that are, right now, objectively far better than Ethereum's Layer 1. We're talking fractions of a penny per transaction, near instant finality.
Which appeals to certain users and apps.
Absolutely. Think high-frequency trading, consumer apps, maybe certain types of gaming where you need that instant feedback loop. Things where cost and speed are paramount.
So what's the risk to Ethereum there?
The risk is user experience. Ethereum relies on users navigating this world of L2s, knowing about Arbitrum, optimism, using bridges to move funds, maybe having assets spread across different layers. It's getting better, but it's still more complex than just using Solana directly.
Simplicity wins.
It often does, especially for mainstream adoption. The danger is that users, developers, and even some institutions might decide that Solana's good enough decentralization is acceptable if the user experience is just vastly smoother and cheaper.
They might migrate away from ETH, even with its big developer base.
Solana has already shown that significant migration can happen if the UX and cost advantages are compelling enough. It directly challenges the idea that Ethereum's network effect is unbeatable.
Okay, so competition is risk number one. What's number two?
Regulation. Specifically, the regulatory headwinds in the United States. This is a huge cloud hanging over institutional adoption.
The uncertainty is the killer.
Absolutely. The big question mark is how ETH will ultimately be classified by regulators like the SEC. This risk has to be factored in.
We've seen hints or suggestions in the past. Could ETH be deemed a security?
That possibility has been raised, particularly in discussions around the shift to proof of stake after the merge. Now, we have to be really clear here.
Yes.
We're simply reporting that this regulatory uncertainty exists. It's a known risk factor discussed in the sources. We are not predicting the outcome or taking any side on how ETH should be classified.
Right. Just acknowledging the risk is there.
Exactly. But if ETH were definitively classified as a security in the U.S., the consequences would be massive. It would drastically change how it can be traded, who can offer it, compliance burdens.
It could seriously slow down that institutional rush Armstrong is counting on.
It could potentially slam the brakes on it. So, regardless of how good the tech gets, a negative regulatory outcome in a key market like the U.S. would make that 792% gain far, far less likely. It's a non-tech risk that's huge.
Okay, competition, regulation. Any other major risks?
Well, there's the ever-present risk of just market cycles. Crypto is volatile.
Understatement of the year.
Yeah, predictions like 792%. They often emerge during periods of market optimism, maybe even euphoria. If the broader economic climate sours, say interest rates go up significantly, liquidity tightens globally.
Risk assets get hit hard.
Exactly. Even the best project with the best tech can see its price plummet in a bear market. You have to remember that these gains, if they happen, likely won't be a straight lineup. Volatility is baked in.
Okay, so bearing all that in mind, Armstrong's core thesis is ETH catching up to Bitcoin's market cap. If you had to pick one single metric for listeners to track, to test if that specific idea is actually playing out, what would it be?
Oh, easy. It's the ETH versus BTC market cap ratio, or even just the ETH BTC price ratio, which usually tracks closely.
Why that ratio specifically?
Because it tells you directly in market terms whether Ethereum is gaining ground on the leader. Is ETH's value relative to Bitcoin's increasing over time?
Is the flippening narrative actually happening even slowly?
Right. If Ethereum really is becoming this essential global financial infrastructure layer, its share of the total crypto market value should be consistently increasing compared to Bitcoin. That ratio needs to show a clear, sustained upward trend over months and years.
And if it doesn't? If it stays flat or ETH loses ground to Bitcoin,
Then it suggests the market, especially maybe those institutions, are still valuing Bitcoin's narrative digital gold, simple store of value, more highly. It would mean the convergence thesis isn't panning out, regardless of scaling success. That ratio, it's the scoreboard for Armstrong's big bet.
okay, let's pull back a bit and think about the bigger picture. We've got Armstrong's bold prediction, the tech roadmap, the risks. What does this all mean for the wider Web3 world? What are the potential outcomes here?
Well, you essentially have two profoundly different futures playing out, depending on whether Armstrong's vision holds true, more or less.
Scenario A, he's right.
Scenario A Armstrong is broadly correct, maybe not exactly 792%, but directionally right. Ethereum successfully scales with L2s, dank sharding works, fees drop. Wall Street embraces the ETFs, RWA tokenization takes off on Ethereum.
What happens then?
In that world, ETH dominance gets cemented. It becomes the undisputed settlement layer, the bedrock for this new financial system. And that's a huge rising tide.
Lifts all boats built on ETH.
Pretty much. The entire ecosystem around Ethereum DeFi protocols, NFT platforms, crypto gaming, stablecoins, all those RWA projects, they all benefit massively. Ethereum becomes the clear winner, the core infrastructure.
Okay, that's the optimistic scenario. What's scenario B?
Scenario B is fragmentation. It's the world where Ethereum doesn't quite deliver. Maybe the scaling isn't good enough, maybe L2s remain too complex, maybe costs don't drop enough, or maybe regulation throws a major wrench in the works.
And the competition steps in.
And the competition, Solana, Avalanche, others capture a significant chunk of that growth, maybe even the majority in certain sectors like consumer apps or gaming. Users and developers migrate because the experience is just better or cheaper elsewhere.
So no clear winner.
In that scenario, you likely end up with a multi-chain future. Ethereum is still important, maybe dominant in high-value DeFi, but it's just one major layer one among several, each specializing. It wouldn't be the undisputed center.
And that market cap convergence with Bitcoin.
Much, much less likely in scenario B. Ethereum's potential value is significantly capped if it doesn't become that foundational layer for everything.
So regardless of which scenario plays out, Armstrong's prediction and Coinbase's strategy really forces the issue, doesn't
It
it?
absolutely does. It puts the spotlight right back on the core challenge for the entire industry. Can you deliver scaling? Can decentralized infrastructure finally be fast, cheap, and secure, all at the same time with a good user experience? That's the billion, maybe trillion-dollar question.
Okay, which brings us back to tracking progress. What are the absolute must-watch metrics now, specifically for judging if institutions are biting and if the scaling is actually working?
Two final key areas to watch like a hawk.
Cool.
First, once they launch, institutional flows into those spot ETH ETFs.
The real money talking.
That's the acid test for the whole Wall Street adoption narrative. We need to track the weekly inflow data. How much money is going in? How does it compare to the initial flows into the Bitcoin ETFs? Is demand strong and sustained? That tells you if the institutional leg of the prediction is real.
Okay, ETF flows. What's the second one?
The second tracks the tech reality. Gas fees versus layer 2 adoption. We talked about the ratio, but also just the cost. Our average transaction fees on major L2s like Base, Optimism, Arbitrum consistently staying super low, like pennies or fractions of a penny?
Even when network activity spikes.
Especially then. If L2 fees remain negligible even during high demand periods, it's proof. Proof that the scaling architecture works, that the network can handle mass adoption cheaply, that the foundation needed for trillions in tokenized assets is actually stable and affordable.
So ETF flows show demand. L2 costs show capability.
Exactly. Those are the two pillars supporting the possibility of that 792% gain.
This has been definitely a deep dive. We've really dissected this huge claim from Brian Armstrong, looked at the tech, the institutional angle, the very real competition.
Yeah, it's complex. The prediction, while eye-popping, isn't totally random. It's grounded in this vision of Ethereum becoming the core infrastructure for global finance. If.
A big if.
A huge if it executes flawlessly on a very complicated technical roadmap and gets regulatory blessing and fends off faster competitors.
Right. So summarizing the bull case, it rests on successful scaling,
Yeah.
L2s, dank sharding, institutional buy-in ETFs, and massive utility expansion, RWAs.
That's the trifecta.
And the main risks threatening it.
Yeah.
Intense competition, especially from faster chains like Solana, and that looming shadow of regulatory uncertainty. The SEC classification question.
Those are the big ones, yeah. Competition and regulation.
Okay, as we wrap this up, I have one final thought, a question really for you, the listener, to chew on. It gets to the heart of the difference between ETH and BTC.
Okay.
Is Ethereum, with all its utility, its complexity, its reliance on future upgrades succeeding, is it best thought of as digital oil? You know, the essential, maybe messy fuel needed to power this new internet of value?
That's one way to frame it. The engine.
Or is that very complexity combined with its volatility just fundamentally too risky for mainstream institutions compared to the elegant simplicity, the proven scarcity of Bitcoin, the digital gold?
Utility versus simplicity. Platform versus asset. Complexity versus scarcity.
Which one will institutions ultimately value more when they allocate the really big money? That's the core tension, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And the answer to that question, revealed over the next few years, will likely determine whether 792% was a visionary call or just market cycle enthusiasm.
So keep an eye on those metrics we discussed.
Definitely. Staking growth, developer activity, L2 costs, and especially those ETH ETF flows when they arrive, that's where the market will give us the real answers.
Excellent point to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We really encourage you to keep tracking these developments yourself. Until next time, keep learning.